Hello and welcome to a new episode of SportsDay Rangers on a Friday. I'm John Blake.
And I'm Evan Grant.
And as I said, we're back on a Friday, and we're going to talk about the Rangers who just continue to hang in there after a winning road trip to the West Coast in Arizona. And then we're going to talk to Cole Hamels, who had a big impact on the last time the Rangers came from way back to win the division in 2015.
The Rangers and I are just back. I mean, literally, I'm just back. Hopefully the Rangers flight did not have an aborted takeoff last night, which they did have from Sacramento. And look, the Rangers lost 2 out of 3 in Arizona. They didn't score runs the last 2 games, but they've still won 7 of their last 10. And it was a winning road trip. I think the question is going to be, at this point, is a winning road trip, is a good road trip good enough? You know, it was the first winning road trip they've had since May. But that's the question we're going to have to answer.
And all of our fans that are meteorologists want to know, did you experience a haboob while you're out there?
There was no haboob. Well, there was a haboob that appeared to be approaching the stadium, but it did not end up engulfing the stadium. Nobody seemed to be very panicked about the approaching haboob there. I have only been in one haboob in Phoenix. That was one time when I was out for like Fall League or something. I was at the Vietnamese restaurant in Surprise, Saigon Kitchen, which is a great spot if you're going to spring training. And the haboob came rolling in, and it blew the door open. I mean, the door to the restaurant just blew open, and then nobody even moved. And I'm like, what is going on here?
So,
haboob stories.
Right. And someday we'll get into surprise stories as well.
Bottom of the ninth, bases loaded. Here comes Jimmy Dale from Baker Brothers Plumbing, AC, and Electrical.
Thanks, Chuck. When your home pitches curveballs, Baker Brothers knocks it out of the park.
Home run, Baker Brothers. Incredible.
As the official home service partner of your Texas Rangers, we're offering $300 off a tank or tankless water heater.
Another winning call. Visit callbakernow.com or dial 214-342-1171 today.
Baker Brothers.
Great service.
So as we tape here on a Thursday, the Rangers coming off a 4-2 road trip, but losing the last 2 games in Arizona. And they find themselves, they've made up some ground in the wild card. Again, they've gotten some luck from Seattle. Seattle is kind of in a funk here.
Well, Seattle's trying to hold to Jerry DiPoto's mantra of only winning 54% of its games.
Right, so they're only a game and a half behind the Mariners in the wild card for 4th, but right on their heels are the Royals and the Rays, who, again, played pretty well against Seattle this week. So what do you make? I mean, the injuries are piling up, Evan. Obviously, Adolis Garcia going out. Looked to maybe it sucked a little bit of the energy out of this group that was so successful in creating runs and getting wins in Sacramento and then the first game in Arizona. But it's just a lot of young guys, and again, energy can only take you so far.
Yeah, that was kind of it. You know, when you're scoring some runs with those young guys and everybody's really excited about scoring runs, the narrative becomes energy, attitude, and all of that. When you don't score runs and you look out on the field and you're looking, you know, you're looking at a waiver claim at first base. You're looking at a waiver claim in center field. You're looking all around the field, and you see, you say it's just not a terribly talented team out there right now. Now, they have played above what I think is their realistic cap for a while. The Tuesday loss in Arizona. Look, they had won 6 straight. You're going to lose once a week. The Wednesday loss against Zach Gallen. Good pitcher, but I don't think the Rangers took advantage of very many opportunities. And that's where, you know, losing on Tuesday to Chris Matt, when you did have 9 opportunities with runners in scoring position, didn't take advantage of it, you know, that does come back to hurt you a little bit. So,
and again, you got Zach Gallen, a lot of pitches early, and Arizona had to use 3 innings of relief yesterday, and the Rangers didn't do a whole lot against the Arizona bullpen. It was a little discouraging.
It was, you know, and again, they went 0 for 14 with runners in scoring position over the final 2 games in Arizona, and that's kind of been, you know, the mode of operation for much of this season is opportunities that went wasted. But yesterday, I just felt like it looked like a team that was at the end of a road trip and tired. And look, it's not an excuse. I mean, it's just a reality. It's September. You're on the road. You had an aborted takeoff and had a unique travel circumstance. And we can talk about that a little bit if you want. And you're playing a bunch of young guys. You had given Josh Young, who has been hot, the day off because you were trying to get him one last break. And so it just, there was no offense to materialize. And Jack Leiter, the story yesterday should have been Jack Leiter another step in what has been a really strong finish to his rookie season. And I felt bad for Jack after the game because he's saying, first 2 innings, I struggled a little bit with command and I wasn't aggressive enough. And I wish I had given the guys a better opportunity to win. And I'm sitting there thinking, me smart ass notepad, I'm writing all this down. And in my head, I'm smirking. I'm like, well, Jack, it doesn't matter how many, how many runs you give up. If the team doesn't score any, it's not going to have a very good chance to win. So it was just not a great opportunity or great day. The Rangers had one late opportunity that looked like it was percolating. And Alejandro Osuna, who had a really good game and a really good set of games in Arizona, makes a rookie mistake of taking too aggressive of a break on a ground ball back to the pitcher, gets caught off a second base. So just not a great finish to the road trip. They come home and they play Houston. It's after Labor Day, John. They've got a big series against the Astros. They can still change the dynamic, and thankfully for the Rangers, the Seattle Mariners refused to take control of a playoff spot.
Right, and after the Astros, it's the Milwaukee Brewers on this homestand, which is, it's going to be a tough homestand, and then you've got a tough road trip coming up. But again, the Astros somehow do seem to kind of they took advantage of a very shaky New York bullpen last night, and they keep getting wins, and despite the injuries. And the Rangers have Merrill Kelly on Friday and Jacob deGrom on Saturday, and they've got a chance. Again, we talk about this pitching. As we speak today, the Rangers lead the major leagues. Their ERA is 3.45. The next team is 3.65. It is amazing, even in this era of decreased offense, what the Rangers are doing on the mound.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a great year. And the one unfortunate thing in all that is, boy, you would love to have Nathan Eovaldi pitching in this series. And just another injury that the Rangers are dealing with. Doesn't appear that Tyler Mahle is going to be able to pitch against Milwaukee next week. His rehab start didn't go all that great, at least execution-wise. So they're having to step in, and guys are doing it. Whether it's Jacob Latz pitching out of the bullpen as a starter, or Merrill Kelly, or listen, Patrick Corbin gave up back-to-back home runs on the first two batters on Monday night, and still pitched into the sixth and gave the Rangers a chance to win, and they did capitalize on it.
So we'll see what happens. Again, a couple of tougher offenses in the next the next 4 series, really. Here.
Look, I mean, again, we can have a whiteboard up here of all the things working against the Rangers from tiebreakers on down. They've got the 4th hardest remaining schedule in Major League Baseball with 3 against Milwaukee, 6 against the Astros, 3 against the Mets.
In New York.
And then finish up with 3 against Cleveland. They've got 2 series against losing teams, the Twins and the Marlins. So they've got a tough road ahead of them. We could add to the whiteboard that, again, they have not played great against teams with winning records.
Right.
The skeptic would look at the last week and say, yes, they did have a winning road trip, and it was their 2nd winning road trip of the year. The other winning road trip was against Pittsburgh and Baltimore, 2 last-place teams.
Right,
this was against 2 losing teams.
Right.
So,
well, we'll see what happens. Again, I say this every week, I think. It gives you something to talk about. You're in the race. You talk about the tiebreakers, and it's kind of fun to do, but it's a little frustrating at times, especially with these injuries. And are we Ranger fans going to see any of these guys back at any point? Do you think
I think there's a chance that you could get Corey Seager back for the Mets series, or at least the Houston series down there. I think by the time this drops, the Rangers will probably have made a determination that Adolis Garcia is going to go on the IL. Sounded like when I talked to Bruce Bochy after the game on Wednesday night, he felt that there had been no progress and that Adolis was probably more sore in the quad than they expected. Evaldi's obviously not going to be back during the regular season. So I think their best hope right now is that they could maybe get Seager back for the Mets or the Astros.
And you mentioned the travel situation, but in Sacramento to Phoenix.
What's the weirdest travel situation you ever had?
We've been diverted, obviously. I mean, because of weather. Never had to stay in another city.
I mean, this is unheard of.
This was pretty unusual. Getting to the tarmac. Now we've had flights that were, canceled, or when we were on commercial flights and we had to stay in city extra night in a city during the commercial airline days. But just the whole thing being on the tarmac and getting ready to take off or whatever, that's tough. And the director of travel, Josh Sheldon, did a great job getting the teams in a hotel. They got to Arizona fairly early the next day. But, teams used to travel on day of games. When I was with the Orioles, I'm going way, way back, but even with the Rangers, if we were going to Kansas City, we traveled morning of the game.
That's 40 years ago.
Right.
The environment
but it's changed now where that if you have an off day, you don't go on the off day anymore. You go the night of the game, after the game. If you play on Wednesday night and you're off Thursday in Sacramento, you fly Wednesday night, and you do that all the time. So it was pretty unusual.
And one other thing about the whole thing is that the directors of team travel, they never get any love. And
correct.
They're only in headlines when things seem to go wrong.
Exactly.
And look, Josh has no ability to control the airplane that is contracted or anything like that. But they are incredibly quick in being able to. I mean, you're talking about a travel party of 50 people.
50, try 70.
70
people.
70 people. Get them into a hotel, get arrangements, for transportation the next day, and get a plane there. It's a lot that they've got going on. And as Brett Boone told me, that the players were incredibly patient.
That's changed a lot too.
Which is not the course of what it used to be.
No, it's not.
He said, if it had happened when he was with the Mariners or everything, the players would have just been barking from the back of the plane nonstop.
Traveling secretaries used to get crushed on stuff as simple as you'd pull up to the gate going onto the tarmac at LaGuardia, and you'd have to wait 15 minutes. And we were on one bus way back then, and we'd be sitting in the front, and the players would just be and there were some guys who were pretty good bench jockeys.
Yeah, and I mean it's all in good spirits, but you know.
But when you're in a pressure situation, it's hard.
When the sweat is dripping off of you, yeah.
So anyway, our guest this week is Cole Hamels, and it's 10-year anniversary now of the 2015 Rangers, which did not have a good start, and we'll talk to Cole a little bit about that. And Rangers acquire him at the trading deadline, and he goes 7-1 down the stretch, wins the last game of the season, and now he's with the Phillies working as advisor. So we'll talk with Cole Hamels next. Well, our guest this week on SportsDay Rangers, Evan, very appropriate. It's the 10-year anniversary of the 2015 season, which, as we sit now, let's hope the 2025 season ends as well as the Rangers did the last couple of months in 2025. But it's pitcher Cole Hamels, 15-year veteran, 9.5 years in Philadelphia. Won the World Series with the Phillies in 2008, was the World Series and the NLCS MVP that year. 163 wins with a 3.4 ERA, lifetime WAR of 58, four-time All-Star, and of course the 2015 season, the trade on July 31st really helping to catapult the Rangers to their AL West title that season. So, Cole, you're back. I just wanted to start. You've gone to work, I guess, as a special advisor and doing some broadcasting for the Phillies. So you're back into professional baseball after a little bit of a hiatus. How you liking it?
It's been good. Yeah, retirement was short. I think just with baseball, you tend to miss it. It's something that I've been doing my whole life. So, just in transitioning for how to be more front office coaching instead of actually having to perform. So it's been a new challenge, but I've really enjoyed just the opportunities and being around the game of baseball and learning it from a different angle.
So what exactly are you doing with the Phillies? You're doing some broadcasting, and on the front office side, what are you doing? What are your responsibilities, and what is it like? Are you in contact more with David, or are you more in contact with Sam Fuld?
It's funny. I actually see both a lot, but I'm mostly in contact with Dave. I do a lot with pitching and really trying to look at the prospects, being around them, just trying to give them some better feedback from what I see, and just kind of transitioning from a full analytical side to a player side. It's just kind of meshing the communication.
So let's go back a little bit now to 2015. You'd spent your entire career with a lot of success in Philadelphia. When did you begin to get the feel that that year you might be moving on and being traded at the deadline?
I understood where the Phillies were going before the season started. And, Philadelphia media, they're very spot on and abrupt. From the very beginning, they already kind of have the season mapped out and know where you're going to fall in the rankings and what you should do to either improve the team or who to trade and win. And so I kind of had a feeling going into spring training that if we didn't get out on the right foot, I was going to be traded. And it was just a matter of probably what team provided the best package for the Phillies and what type of rebuild they wanted to do and for how long. So I kind of knew it was there. It's something that when you're playing in a season, it's almost like you're showcasing your ability to every single scout that's there. You're very aware of it, and the media constantly will talk about it. So as it got closer and closer to the trade deadline, I knew that there were quite a few teams that wanted me, that I fit into their rotations. I fit into their sort of long-term philosophies. And it just was a matter of, I guess, having a couple good games, because I wasn't on for a couple games leading up to, the last day that I pitched as a Philly. So it's just a matter of time. And then what was going to happen with Ruben and what team was really going to come with the best package.
And if you remember, Evan, the last start before he got traded, he pitched a no-hitter.
No, I remember we were watching
the Cubs.
We were watching in the clubhouse in Anaheim. As that was happening. And I still think that was the 25th, right, Cole?
Yes.
And the trade didn't happen for another week. And I think that the rumors had started to spark that maybe the Rangers would possibly be involved, but they were still 7.5 games out.
Right. We were under 500 at this point.
And it all seemed a little bit far-fetched to me, but John Daniels' approach was, we're looking both this year and long term.
Right.
I don't know that I ever asked you how much whiplash it was to go from pitching that no-hitter to then coming to a team that really wasn't on the cusp of contention at that moment.
I know, like anything, I read into, what Texas was trying to do, the players they had, where they fell in the division. And I know a lot of people looked at it as, well, this is a 4-year deal that you're pretty much getting Cole for. So it's almost like signing a free agent to a 4-year deal. But I looked at the team. I said, this team's actually pretty good right now. And they were hot. And I looked at Houston and I knew, I was like, no, I think we can catch Houston. They were very unexperienced. And so I said, no, I actually, this is going to fall pretty well. And when I got over there, I could tell the excitement in the class with all those guys, that it was like they were turning on the light switch and everybody was like, no, we are going to do it this year. We're going to do something special. And you could feel it. And man, I think that was what was great for me to experience, is in the Phillies clubhouse, everybody knew, okay, rebuild, trade, the season's kind of over. Guys are just putting up their numbers for their what they're trying to do. I came over to Texas and was like, oh no, we're going to be in the hunt. We're on call. I thought that was great.
And as a starting pitcher, you're kind of in the zone, but you mentioned the team. How did that and Prince Fielder had a great year that year. We had Beltre, we had Elvis Andrus. I mean, we had a pretty good nucleus, like you say. But then the bullpen came together. Jake Diekman came over with you, and then the Sam Dyson deal, which was made the same day, it was a totally underrated deal at that point. I mean, in terms of being but you're right, the club kind of came together.
It really did, and I thought that was really interesting. Was the fact that when I got there, there were so many guys that were being traded in the day before, the day after. We almost had like a new team, and a lot of us were all meeting each other for the first time. But you could tell everybody's like, "Oh, we know what we're going to do." This is that you could feel the energy, and I think that's what it takes is when you get guys traded, and everybody comes in with such a positive mindset. And then you have Elvis, you've got Beltray, Odor. That energy there is very infectious. And I think we all looked at each other like, all right, we're going to do this and we're having fun. And I think that's what happens is when you start to have fun, you don't have that sort of stress or pressure, good things happen.
That's the same thing that the Rangers have talked about for the last week as they've lost all these players. You know, they've said, well, we could just fold here or we could just play loose. And they have played loose with a lot of energy. And I know players talk all the time, like energy comes from success, but I think they can go hand in hand. I think they can percolate at the same time. And that's what we kind of saw in this last week with the Rangers. What did you see over the last stretch? Because really, I mean, you guys did make up 8 games, and I think they caught the Astros the middle of September. You had a start in that big series that got the club within a half a game, but then it's the last weekend of the year, and that series with the Angels. What do you remember about that weekend leading up to your start?
Yeah, that's why I've been on quite a few teams where we've been able to chase down the division leader in the last month. And that right there just shows how difficult the game of baseball is and how much pressure is put on a division team to try to clinch while you have other teams that are getting hot and chasing them down. And that was what we did. We knew we were going to chase them down. We believed it. And you could tell on the other side, they were starting to feel the pressure. And because they were inexperienced, I think that's what ended up happening is we caught up and we weren't going to give it back. And they just kind of folded. And that's the unfortunate part, but I know they completely redeemed themselves over the last couple of years and they're an amazing team. But going into that Anaheim series, I know Anaheim was even at stake as they were trying to make a wild card push. So they weren't going to give up either. And we just needed to seal the deal. And again, it comes down to when you finally have to clinch, it's not as easy as it is to chase somebody down. So we did. I knew we could have clinched probably with 2 games left, which would have led me to believe to start off the first playoff series. But again, then it didn't fall that way. And I was more than happy to take that ball on the last day and do everything I possibly could to get us in the postseason. And I think just the experience that I had before helped me. But I knew this team they were so hot. And when you have that confidence in your starter and then in your lineup, we all worked together. And I mean, you saw what we did. The scores, the home runs, obviously I pitched the whole game. We all did what we were supposed to do.
For listeners and readers out there who don't remember 10 years back, and I had to jog my memory a little bit, you know, the Angels on the first night of that series scored a run in the 9th inning to win 2-1.
Right.
Saturday, the Rangers take a 4-run lead to the 9th inning, and the Angels score 5 runs in the top of the 9th and take an 11-10 win. And then so it comes down to Saturday and
we had the
Sunday.
Clubhouse. We were, we're like prepared Friday and Saturday, especially Saturday. We had to do a lot of pulling out pretty quick. And Cole, your mindset has to change too, right? Because you say now you're almost looking ahead of the play, and then I got to pitch tomorrow.
Yeah, near the end, there was a couple 4-letter words that kind of slipped under my breath. But at the same time, it's you let them out, and you're like, all right, this is business. I've got to go. It's my turn to show up. And that was what I knew they were looking at me. I mean, that is why I was an ace. That's why you get the contracts you get. It's because this is the job that you know how to handle and you deliver. And I knew what I needed to do. And I was able to go out there and do it.
The thing that I remember about your time with the Rangers is how regimented you were in your approach in your prep. And so when I go back and I play all that through my head again, and I think about all of that, and then having to change and pitch the next day, like, how are you able to change gears like that? Because you were, I mean, didn't we like travel with like your back contraption so that you could work on that thing?
Yeah, we did.
I mean, you had a very strict regimen of how you prepared, right?
I did. My first goal was to not go on the disabled list. I wanted to post up every 5 days. I wanted to make those 34 to 35 starts. And so what I was able to do, the people I had in place that helped allow me to make sure I was physically the best I possibly could. I had a certain routine, and I loved my routine because it created consistency, and the consistency created confidence. And so I knew, all right, if I just go through my routine and my regiment, I feel comfortable and confident I can go out and be the best I possibly can. And that's what I stuck with. And that was years of experiencing and years of trial and error. But I was pretty locked in that sort of period of time. And I was able to then just kind of turn it on. I knew I was going to pitch a big game if it was the last game of the season or if it was going to be the first postseason. So I was going to pitch a big game no matter what. So I mentally was prepared for that. It was just what time of the day I was to do it.
And then the Rangers go on. Obviously, we know what happened in the LDS. You had 2 memorable starts. Game 2, that game, and when we came back to win, when Adrian got hurt and Alfaro, these guys, the guys that came through in that game. And then Game 5. What do you remember about Game 5 in Toronto?
Game 5 was intense. You definitely have to give it to the Toronto Blue Jay fans. I mean, they packed that stadium out. It was loud. And I know they have the sort of hockey mentality, but I mean, those fans were giving it to me while I was warming up before the game. And I really enjoyed that. I think like anything, if you're in the home side, home stadium, or you're a visitor in an away city, seeing fans that really passionate and want to watch and cheer on their team, I really enjoy that. And that's why we played the game of baseball. We're athletes, but we're also entertainers. And you want to be able to do it for people that actually want to be there and want to cheer, even if it's against you. I was excited, and getting in there, that was a tough team. I mean, you really have to get that lineup. They were just as hot as we were. So it was a tough team, and I knew I had to battle. It was a tough game all the way. I mean, you couldn't give away one pitch, one at bat, or one run was really going to make a difference, and it did.
So again, we go to the 7th inning of that game. You start the 7th inning with the lead, and we have we see the 2 errors by Elvis that were really difficult for him, and we've talked with him about that. When Banny comes out to take you out in that situation, what's on your mind at that point?
I mean, that was the craziest part about that game, I think, leading up to it, that I don't know if a lot of people know, is we almost had probably about a half-hour delay because of, the ordeal with all the fans throwing stuff onto the field, how we scored. It was very unique. We had to sit around and let, the cops are running out there. They're trying to settle everybody down. So that downtime is not easy in the middle of a game. I mean, it's almost like everybody cooled down.
Yep.
And then we have to restart and refocus and get back out there because this inning is intense. We just took the lead. So we had to psych ourselves back up. And I know I was down in the tunnel just throwing balls against the net, just trying to stay warm. But I did. I went out there and I just tried to make as pitches I could. And it's just unfortunate. Elvis is one of the best shortstops, and I loved him behind me, and I still would want him behind me. He's one of the best. It's just one of the most unfortunate circumstances, and I didn't think anything of it. I just was going to keep plugging away. Elvis felt horrible because he's one of the best teammates you could possibly have. And he didn't want to have that happen. And I don't think any of us wanted it. We didn't blame him for anything. It just is what it is. We still had to go out and score some runs anyway. So I know when Banny took me out, I mean, I was at my pitch max, 120 something pitches. I gave it everything I could. And I still believed. I said, you know what, we have a great bullpen. We're going to get this done. And unfortunately, it didn't. Really didn't, and you have to give it to Batista for hitting one of the biggest home runs you could ever ask for.
That was that whole set of circumstances and that set of events. It's you just can't even write that script. It was all just. It really was. The atmosphere was so intense, and the energy that we saw on the field, and I'll never one of the in this job, like there's certain images that stick in my mind that don't have nothing to do with like a play on the field, but it's like talking to Elvis after that game with tears literally in his eyes after he had he felt like he had cost the Rangers that playoff series. That one always sticks with me. And that was a hard series to lose, But I got to segue for 1 minute because we mentioned the 2 errors there, and we had a situation the other night, and I'm going to put you on the spot because I think every former player already has a take on this. But what's your thought?
Right.
Did Framber Valdez throw intentionally at his catcher?
Yeah, you can't do that. That's really hard for me because I had a ton of arguments with my catchers, but we would go down in the tunnel and just talk it out. Even if we were kind of yelling at each other, it was the passion and the belief that we were one unit. We had to work together. And if one of us made a mistake, we are human. We're going to make some mistakes. We have to talk through. You cannot physically hurt somebody because you're angry. And I just think you just can't. And I know I learned the hard way too. I was guilty. I hit somebody on purpose. I said I did it on purpose, and people can throw me under the bus. I didn't have any intent to try to hurt somebody. But I've done some stupid things in my career too, and you have to learn from it. And so then to try to give advice, you're like, oh shoot, I kind of did something bad too. We have to learn from it. And, the game of pitching is you have to commit to what you're doing, and you have to live with the consequences of what it is. It's nobody else's fault. You get to decide when and where you throw the pitch, and you get to decide to actually do it. He could have stepped off. So I just think that was tough. Probably should have talked about it, in the dugout after the fact. And I'm sure they probably been talking about it a lot.
Well, it was those were fun days when you pitched for the Rangers. 2016, we led wire to wire, and unfortunately, we faced the Blue Jays again in the playoffs. But you went 15-5 that year, and so your time in Texas, and Cole's actually going to be at the ballpark Saturday night, right, to sign in
Yes.
New Era Alumni Alley, so the fans can come out and see him and everything.
And then I think both clubs in the World Series will have you throw out first pitches, one in Philly and then one here for the games here, right? Because
That'd be great. I'd love that.
Sure, why not?
But anyway, we appreciate the time. We'll see you out at the ballpark this weekend. Thanks, Cole. So, Evan, you know how I like anniversaries. Nice, different anniversaries.
Do you remember your anniversary to Harriet?
Well,
how about that anniversary?
Well, that has always been tougher because we got married in the summer because I was working in college then, and then like the next year I went to work for a baseball team.
So that anniversary, not so much.
So that's been a little tougher over the last 47 years.
Arcane.
Yes.
The day that Scarborough Green stole 5 bases.
6, but yes.
6?
Yes, 6 bases.
6 bases.
But anyway, tomorrow, Saturday, will be the 25th anniversary of Scott Sheldon becoming just the 3rd player in Major League history to play all 9 defensive positions in the same game. And it was a very unusual situation. This has only been done 5 times overall. It was done in 1968 by it's 1965 by Bert Campaneris, 1968 by Cesar Tovar, both former Rangers, but with other teams. And then it was done by Shane Halter the same year as Sheldon in 2000. And the last guy to do it was Andrew Romine, who played briefly in Texas in 2017. All of those guys, it was kind of planned before. They would play one inning, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I remember all of this.
This
vaguely.
was September 6, 2000 at the White Sox at Chicago.
Right. Now, I want to go back because I think, Scott Sheldon had played a bunch of positions over the course of that season,
Correct.
right?
He was also our 3rd catcher. He'd caught a couple times, so that was not that unusual.
And Halter he'd already done his thing, right?
No, Halter did it after Sheldon in September.
It was after Scott?
Right.
Okay.
And then all these were done in September where you had expanded rosters so you could maneuver a little bit.
But somehow, Johnny Oates was the manager. This was his last full season. Johnny was not like the hijinks type element of baseball.
But he had promised Sheldon he could probably do this. I had talked about it with Johnny.
But didn't we, like in the media, kind of goad Johnny?
Yeah, but Johnny had agreed to do this in September,
right?
Figuring we would do it at a home game later in the season. We were not in the race.
Right.
I mean, this team was the year after the club had a really good year in '99, but things did not go well in 2000.
When there was some reshuffling of the deck,
right? And we traded Juan Gonzalez and everything, but it just kind of happened. And I was not on this trip. You were on this trip, and I remember getting a phone call, like from my assistant at the time, Brad Horn, in like the third inning, and Johnny had called up to him in the press box and said, "I'm going to play Sheldon. I'm going to do this with Scott Sheldon here." And the Rangers were trailing, I think, 10-1. Rick Helling had gotten killed, at the start. And in the fourth inning, the bottom of the fourth inning, the fun started.
Yeah, and I don't remember how the rotation and all of that worked.
I can run down it real quick.
But I do remember that there just seemed to be a lot of chaos in the press box over all of this as this was taking place. And
again, this was the third time in Major League history this was happening. And as Evan said, it was not done smoothly. Well, let's just look at the rotation.
Okay.
Now, it started off okay. He caught the fourth inning, the entire fourth inning, had a put out on a strikeout, and he played first base the entire fifth inning. But after that, you've got we were way down, so he's got 3 innings left now, and he's got to play 7 more positions. So he starts this,
and right, like the idea of this whole thing is if you're going to do this, you play like
full inning at a position, yes.
Right. And maybe one pitch at that point in time, maybe one batter as a pitcher.
So in the 6th, he starts at second base with 2 batters, then moves to shortstop for the final 4 batters of the inning. The 7th inning, he starts in right field, first 3 batters. Johnny moves him to center for the final batter of that inning. Then in the 8th inning, he starts in left field for 1 batter. Johnny moves him to the mound, and he strikes out Jeff Leifer. If you remember this, the immortal Jeff Leifer, who was, I think it's Leifer is the way it was pronounced, utility infielder with the White Sox. And then he gets moved to third base because it was a 1-2-3 inning. So he's playing third base for the final inning, and he got all 9 positions in. And the other thing about this was Johnny and Brad, I got all this from Brad, that Johnny was not real happy with the White Sox. We're not making a bigger deal out of this from on their PA system. And, hey, Scott Sheldon is playing all 9. Now he moves to shortstop or whatever it is.
Well, I mean, I don't think you're going to announce, hey, we're going to do this here.
But
and you're not going to do it with a visiting player. So that was, Johnny was a little bit, he was a little bit off center there. The thing I
remember post game how this went down with the manager and Sheldon or
it was like, again, Johnny was not, God bless Johnny's memory, and he was a great manager, and I learned a lot covering him, but like fun and games was not his strong suit, and so there wasn't a lot of humorous stuff. I don't recall.
No, he was not big on this. This was a guy that played his regular lineup every day. Yeah. I mean,
it wasn't like I want to have Scott on the podcast next season at some point in time and talk about this. But like, I don't remember anything super fun coming out of it. And the one thing that comes to my mind, I think Terry Bevins was still the manager.
Terry Bevington, yeah.
He was still the White Sox manager. I just don't, I wonder how I've never recalled how the White Sox reacted to all this. Cause you've got this ridiculous movement around the field in innings, right. Not clean innings. No. And that could be a little bit annoying. And the White Sox, were a contending team. They were obviously, that game was in hand and everything,
right.
But it just became kind of a circus show at that point.
Well, and the Rangers did end up losing 13-1, didn't really. And the National Baseball Hall of Fame requested the jersey, and I don't think it's on display, but it's in the possession of Cooperstown, the jersey that Scott Sheldon wore. And Scott Sheldon, the other thing, I mean, he was a nice guy, utility guy, played a lot in 2000, 2001, and the other thing that I remember about him was we designated him for assignment at the winter meetings the year we needed to clear a roster spot for Ricky Williams when the owner at the time, Tom Hicks, big Texas guy. Ricky Williams had played a little minor league baseball, but he was the Heisman Trophy winner or whatever. And the Rangers drafted him in the Major League Rule 5 draft and had to put him on the roster. And Scott Sheldon lost his roster spot.
Well, and the Rangers have we can do an NFL draft special one week with Ricky
Russell
Williams.
Wilson.
The Rangers drafted Jameis Winston. They took Russell Wilson in the Rule 5 draft, right? And the
Yes.
same thing, Major League portion of the
No,
that was the minor
league portion. But we got a lot of mileage out of it.
Oh,
in
we had
spring
Russell
training.
come to camp one day.
Yep.
It was
unbelievable.
it was quite the spectacle. It was another John Blake special.
But if you're thinking of a Ranger anniversary, 25 years ago tomorrow, think about Scott Sheldon,
September 6th.
2000.
Was it didn't you have another one?
Well, no, it wasn't. We were, there's another story. The Joaquin Benoit 7-inning save, but I want to save that for another day. So because we've got to move on here.
Okay.
So we'll move on. But so again, this week we thank you for joining Sports Day Rangers.
Don't forget to check out more sports content from the Dallas Morning News, Sports Day Insider, my podcast with columnist Kevin Sherrington, and a guest from the Morning News sports staff appears in the same feed every week. That usually drops on Tuesday or Wednesday. And as the Cowboy season starts, it will drop right after their games early in the week. So you can have lots of hot sports opinions from Kevin and I.
And let's hope the Rangers can keep the Cowboys kind of aside here over the next few weeks as they go through the playoff race here. It's the best time of year in baseball, and we're looking forward to it, and we'll talk to you all next week.